What is up, and welcome to another episode of Hanson Athletics. Today we got Daniel Ryan on for his second appearance, and we get into collegiate strength and conditioning, Idaho State here in Pocatello, as well as some principles that can apply worldwide, really, and talk about his experience at the school and in the profession. And then we dive into some certifications and organizations that we recommend future and upcoming coaches look into, as well as take information from, and then give you some advice and maybe some motivation to get that side hustle going to really solidify your spot and, in the world, as well as create a career that can become something that you love to do, which is really the dream and the goal. So, empty those cups, listen in, and take any actionable advice you can out of this. And I appreciate you guys supporting Hanson Athletics.
What, you've been here 2 years?
Going into my third. Started my third.
Going into third.
Yep. Came in July 2017. I started.
Yeah, and we did our first podcast after your first year.
Mm-hmm.
So since then, first off, just in the community, for example, I went and talked to Chief Shy, is that how you say it?
Yep.
Everybody's excited about what you're doing up here. They're like, Dan is the man, is basically what they say. But then for me as a strength coach, I know you just got to be going. You got to be working your ass off.
It's
because you're
time. Yeah.
For people listening that don't know, Dan is basically running 130 athletes.
Total on our 308 this year. 308
athletes. Different sports, different specialties. They need different things, and Dan's a one-man show.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he's got a little bit of help if anybody's listening that helps him out. They're like, well, I help him, but on staff, you're the only one.
Yes. Yep.
And for a Division I school, so that's pretty crazy. Is there any unique challenges you've run into that you didn't know coming into it that you might have?
I think the biggest thing is just how involved I could be with every team. Every other place I've been with one team or two teams, or no more than 4 teams.
Yeah.
So I'm more involved in every bit of the day-to-day. I'm going out and doing the condition. I'm going out and doing the pregame warm-ups and the pre-practice warm-ups with those teams. Yeah. Here, I don't have that luxury, so I rely on, and I have to work with the coaching staffs a lot to help me with that component.
Yeah.
I kind of handle everything in the weight room. I give them direction on some other things, but on-court conditioning for basketball teams, soccer, all that kind of stuff, a lot of that
you can't
goes through the coaches because I can't be there. If I'm not in the weight room, it's closed. So that was an adjustment from being used to controlling every aspect of it.
Yeah.
And being, just having the ability to go to practice and watch athletes
and see
how they move and see where their weaknesses are and see, if there's an injury or something like that, and find ways to individually make them better. I don't get that as much.
That's a big. I didn't even think about that. So you said that's a big component that would help you. Just having more people that could be in here and keep the weight room open is you got to see them on the field and their finished product. The high school kids we train at my gym, I go to their soccer games and I go to their track meets and I go to their football games because as a coach, as a strength coach, you need to see how they display movement without thinking what they're doing. You'd be so you can kind of relate injuries or pain or things they need to work on.
Yep. So I get to most games. I try to get to every home game for all our teams, but having the ability to go to practice and actually see them on a regular basis and see where we're making progress and where we're lacking, and just you could see things you don't see in the weight room. The weight room's a very controlled environment.
Yeah.
We can fix a lot of things. We can correct a lot of things, but it's all controlled.
Yeah.
Out on the field, it's completely different. They're reacting to stimulus. They're moving differently. They're not thinking about how they're loading and how they're recruiting and what their joint angles are and things like that.
Yeah.
So you start to notice them get back into the habits that might be causing them these recurring issues with injury or whatever it might be, or lack of mobility, lack of speed. So it gives you a different perspective outside the weight room where it's the controlled environment. So that's been a little bit of a challenge. I think our coaches here realize that, and they're, we're getting better at relaying that information back and forth. I still do my best to get out to things as much as I can.
Yeah.
And then just creating that relationship with those athletes so they can also tell me where they're feeling issues on the field or where they're not feeling as explosive or whatever, and then we can try to bring that in here.
Yeah.
But it's different than seeing it with your own eyes, for sure.
So for to help alleviate that problem, you just need people in the community I mean, how hard is it for them to just get set up to, like, if they have the right certifications, to come and have the weight room open for you, like, when you could go and be more involved with that
The
stuff?
first thing is a certification, and we have to have, that's an NCAA rule, we have to have an accredited strength and conditioning certification, which I think is a good change for the profession. So we have educated coaches, and there's a standard, and there's, you know, a way we do things, and you don't just get anyone who lifted weights once and thinks they can do it for everyone else, because it's different. But I think part of it is also having the experience in a collegiate setting. It's different coming from the private sector. I've worked in the private sector, and training people one-on-one, you can do things a lot differently. In the team setting, things are run differently. You can't get as in-depth on things. You can't spend as much time on certain things. We have NCAA hour limits for countable athletic-related activities that we have to stay within. So you have to be efficient and try to find, you know, you have to get the biggest bang for your buck all the time. You have to make sure what you're doing is going to give the athletes the most.
What's going to cause adaptation? Like, you can waste a lot of time doing shit you see on the internet that, you know, it's not going to pay off like something else would. No, that's good to know in terms of that. So I had a question for you that I forgot that just stemmed off of that. But we'll go into this. So it's your third year, going into your third year. Have you felt like you're able to make a pretty good change on culture? Because now you're starting to get where, you know, you've had athletes for 2 years. Obviously, I think ideally, once you have that whole 4-year cycle where you've had freshmen all the way to senior, that's awesome. But right now, does it feel a lot different in here than when you started?
It does. You get the senior athletes, you know, that have now been with me for 3 years. They're starting to, the buy-in from the athletes is starting to be there because they're starting to notice results. You know, the strength and conditioning isn't ever 100% responsible for results on the field. There's a lot of outside factors, but it does play a role. You know, the biggest thing for me is reducing the injuries, getting wins, all that kind of stuff. And the kids are starting to see that. When they see that carry over to their sport, they buy in. As those older classes continue to progress through, the younger new recruits who come in, they just fall in line because they see these other successful athletes and how they approach the weight room, and that it's important to them and important to their coaches. So that's been a big thing. And just, you talk about creating the culture. It's making sure that every sport and every athlete realizes the importance of the weight room and how it can help them. How the weight room benefits our cross-country runners is much different than how it benefits our football players. But there's still benefits for them, and it's, you know, finding ways to relay that to those athletes and create buy-in. The big thing is about creating buy-in with them. If they're buying into what you're doing, you're going to get results. You know, there's a lot of ways to do things. There's not one way that's just right, but if you can get them to buy in the system and work hard at it and, you know, seek that improvement, then you're going to see it. So we're starting to get to that point where we're, you know, our injuries are reducing. You're still going to have them, but we're not getting as many major things happening where, you know, our bodies are holding up better. For football last year, we had the majority of our offense, for example, played every game for the most part.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Like our offensive line, a position that's usually pretty beat up and can take some hits, we had none of our guys miss a game.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
that's big for us, and that's been a big thing. And so I think that has some direct correlation to what we're doing in here and what those kids are putting into it. And they care about it. That's the biggest thing. I tell them all the time, I can write the greatest workout in the world in my mind for them, but none of it matters if they don't put effort and an intention every day into it. You know, they want to give me the credit, or people want to give me, I'm not really doing anything. They're the ones doing the work. I have the easy part. I write some things down. I give them some direction, give them some cues. They're the ones who have to put the work in every single day. And it's just the mentality of our kids who have started to do that. And so it's made a change.
Some leaders. So you've had like a good group of leaders kind of step up.
Yeah. We have, I want to say it's 25, 26 seniors on our football team this year who have now been with me for 3 years. You know, you get that kind of continuity with the team. It really helps.
Yeah. Well, I know because I was talking again back to Roger, but because I wasn't around, I was gone for like 8 years. So he said that he can tell a huge difference from when he used to come in, you know, 4, 5, 6 years ago to like when he comes in, because he was doing those summer, like coming in here and working out with you guys. He said it's a completely different environment than what it was, which is awesome.
That's the goal. I mean, our kids spend a lot of time here. Weight rooms can sometimes be the dark dungeon place that, you're not going to want to wake up and go there every single day. All athletes have that day. But if I can get them, the majority of them, to look forward to coming in here most of the time, then we're going to be successful. I want them to enjoy it. I want them to have fun, but we got to get work done. And, there has to be an energy. My coaching style, I'm not the most energetic person out there. I'm not the typical strength coach who's going to yell and scream and jump around and make a lot of noise. That's not my personality. But we're still going to have intent, and we're going to be excited about what we're doing, and I'm going to coach them hard still. So
got to get Fia in here. Dude.
Yeah. Coaches come in. He comes in, and he does that work for me.
Yeah.
So there's no problem with that.
Because my experience at Utah State and U of U was, it was ran like military.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what you got to do, right? To make sure they're coming here and it's effective.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that would be a benefit too. If you as you get more people on staff, you get that high energy guy that wants to yell out the counts and all that shit and kind of run it
Yeah, we're very organized. There's no doubt about that. Kids will tell you if you talk to them, if they're 1 second late to their lift, I'm on them. It's a thing I don't deal with, and we're dealing with that, and they know not to be late. They know that's not something we're gonna tolerate. They know if they're not getting their work done, I'm gonna get on them. But at the same time, I give them some autonomy in here. Yeah. We're not lifting every rep together on the whistle. Yeah. Some programs do that. It works well for them. Mm-hmm. I like giving my kids some autonomy. All of them are a little different, so we give them guidelines, and as long as they stay within that, we're okay. I'm not trying to micromanage them and change how it is and be that much of a dictator. But it's a work in progress.
Yeah, I always like to touch on this because it's just funny. But so have you had any issues with let's say athletes see some shit on the internet or whatever, and they think it's cool, and then they're coming in here and they're like, you're actually doing shit that gets the bang for their buck, and they're like, why aren't we doing this? Or, and you just kind of have to steer them back, or do you ever run into somebody that's really hard-headed about that?
Yeah, I get it quite a bit. The biggest thing I get is that there's not enough variety in my workouts, that they get bored.
Yeah.
Because we do very foundational movements, and we do them frequently.
Yeah.
We squat twice a week. We do all the Olympic lifts multiple times a week.
Yeah.
We're not changing everything every single day just for the sake of keeping them excited, or that, the popular term of muscle confusion.
Yeah.
That you like to get in is marketed. So that's where I get the most pushback. Why are we doing the same workout again? This looks the same as last week.
Yeah.
It mostly is. We're changing volume, we're changing intensity, but the movements we're doing are going to be the same.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest pushback I get, and I work to educate them on why we do it and what we're trying to get out of it, and the value of training consistently in the same way to get results over the time. And so I get that, and then the other big one is the core. I need a core circuit. I need some core exercises
back squat.
We just did 45 minutes of core. You did heavy squat cleans. You did a heavy front squat. We did.
That's about a lot. You're using your whole trunk.
We
all the time.
loaded RDLs. We're doing plenty of core. You're getting way more core activation in that than you do laying down and doing a bunch of crunches.
Which is not.
But
when are you going to do that on the field?
Yeah, in their mind,
lay down and do a crunch on the field.
I got to get my six pack. This is how I'm going to do it. So sometimes you got to. I make deals with them. You get my stuff done.
And I'll give you some.
Then we'll give you some extra stuff at the top. I tell them you got to have your dinner before dessert. So
gotcha.
Get the meat and potatoes, and then you can have everything else after we're done.
Yeah, that's what's funny is I've been reading some stuff on Kobe Bryant and high level athletes, and I've heard in the strength world a lot. But then these athletes are even saying, I was great because I was good at the basics, not because I was good at some flashy shit.
Yep.
Because I was really good at the basics.
And that's kind of my philosophy. Keep it simple.
Yeah. Because you can always break down movement to basic movement patterns, and it's if you can master these movement patterns, and then display them very smoothly and together, then you look athletic. That's athleticism, right? Is the ability to do basic primal movements seamlessly and effortlessly.
And that's the thing. There's not that many basic movements that are key to everything you do in sport. It's pretty simple. You boil it down,
Yeah.
You have your squat, you have your hinge, you have your push, your pull, your lunge.
Yep, and the step up. That's
pretty much all there is there. Yep. And it's just different variations of that. And that's where, with all the inundation of different workout videos and gurus and everything that these kids are seeing every single day, pro athletes are putting this stuff out with their trainers, and they're seeing all of these different exercises, these little snippets.
Yeah.
So if you're staying within just your primal movements, that becomes boring to them, and boring means not effective.
Yeah.
And then boring means less buy-in. So that's a challenge. You have to try to continue to keep them in on it.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, put a little change, something small. It won't be major, but for them, it's a different exercise. For me, I'm getting the same thing out of it.
Yeah.
You know,
Just
I might do a single leg RDL with a dumbbell instead of a barbell RDL.
Yeah.
In their mind, that's a different exercise. I'm getting similar results out of it. So
yeah.
you got to be able to play that game a little bit, but that's probably the biggest challenge with them.
It's just funny to me. Yeah, and two, you got to look at like high school athletes, college athletes. They've got to look if they're looking at like professional high level athletes. You know, odds are they've spent a long time on the basics. Like, so that even if they want to get to like sexy shit, which I would argue, you know, might not be as effective, in that like Odell Beckham's doing weird shit just because he's Odell Beckham.
Yeah.
You know, and like training in the sand, like doing shit like he does isn't necessarily making him better. He's just already good. But like they've spent a lot of time on the basics, and these guys it's just kind of like they want to skip that and go because they think that's what made them successful. The
nice thing is there's finally starting to get some pushback from some of the better minds in strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
You're starting to see it called out speaking up about it on social media a little bit. So some of these things that I've been doing with my athletes, and even when I was assistant working under Mike Gerber, who a lot of people say was an old school coach, kind of taught me all my stuff about Olympic lifting, has been doing it for years. You know, they've been doing it forever, 20, 30 years. Now it's starting to come out. You know, CrossFit comes out and the Olympic lifts become popular, and kids are like, oh, I want to learn how to do this. We've been doing this for 20 years now, you know, so it's starting to come around a little bit, and you're getting some coaches, you know, starting to question these videos on Twitter and Instagram of young kids doing huge amounts of weight with terrible technique. Yeah. You know, and you see people calling that out and kind of pointing out some of the stuff that these professional athletes are doing and calling it for what it is and calling it stupid and useless. And, you know, so you get that a little bit more and the kids are seeing it, but there's still just so much of the other stuff that it's not enough yet. We're moving in the right direction.
And you know what just popped in my mind is, like, you don't see these, like, most of the shit you see on Instagram from, like, professional athletes isn't stuff that they're doing in the actual strength and conditioning program for their team. It's, like, either with the coach outside of the organization or, like, in their off season when they're at home. Like, I don't know if they're not allowed to post stuff within the team environment, but that just dawned on me is, like, we're not seeing the shit that they're doing as, like, the core of their, like, whoever's running their strength and conditioning program for the team. You're not seeing a lot of that. The only person I know that posts a lot was James Harrison, and all he was doing is fucking lifting weights.
Yep.
Doing the basics.
That's the other thing. Everyone wants the likes and the follows and the clicks, and the basics aren't going to get you that. They're not that exciting. Yeah. It's, you know, even when I post stuff, you know, you try to find stuff that's going to get some exposure for the kids, but I will get really excited about, you know, a sub-maximal effort squat that has great depth and range of motion and all that kind of stuff. I put that up. A lot of people are going to make comments about, that's not very much weight. That's a big guy not doing very much weight. That's not very impressive, you know. See it, and they just find it. So I think that's part of it too. They post those kind of things because that's what draws the attention. That's what gets the, you know, the retweets from ESPN and things like that when you're standing on a BOSU ball and you have strobe lights and goggles on and you're catching these multicolored devices with one hand, you know, and that's what, because it's interesting and new. I think that's part of it. Everyone's seen a squat a million times. Everyone's seen a clean a million times, and there's just not that excitement of it. So
it's flashy.
Yeah.
Next question. So have you been able to have a little more impact or work with, like, the athlete nutrition, like, on that side? Because I know before you didn't really have a super good program for that. I know people were trying to do it and help out, and, like, I think they have a nutritionist for the team and stuff. Have you guys been able to, in your opinion, make a bigger impact on what the kids are eating?
We're working on it. It's still probably not as much as we need to. We have a nutritionist on staff, Natalie Christensen. She does a great job with her athletes. She was a former athlete herself. Yeah. But she's a part-time employee, so she does as much as she can with the hours she has here, and she's spread just as thin as I am. She's a one-person staff for all of our athletes. Hard to make big nutritional changes for her by one person, but she goes out of her way a lot. She, incorporates grocery store tours with our kids and cooking classes with them, and does post different material in our fueling stations for pre-workout shakes, post-workout shakes, just small things that they can start to incorporate and that they will actually do on a regular basis. So we're working on that. We're trying to get some other deals with some people in town who want to support the program and work through that to continue to provide more for athletes. But that's one of the places that we have a lot of room to grow still.
Yeah. I think what's cool is, from my perspective, just this whole like switch of branding, the roar. Like, I think ISU is going to start getting a little bit of momentum behind it because there's some change. Like I just remember nothing had changed from when I can remember to when I was 8 years old and moved here to when I left high school. Like, nothing had changed at ISU, and you never heard about it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I think it'll be good. I think with the change in like rebranding and stuff, although if people listen to me, I think that logo still needs a slit in the eye because
there's been some conversations about that
because I drew it like we did it on like a t-shirt, like I put the line in it, and it actually looked like still very new but reminiscent of, it looked a little more like the old one, which I know some people have said like that looked like a completely different logo, but the slit in the eye for some reason like made it look a lot more like that one, but still like new and fierce and like
the funniest thing I've heard, in which Stuart Summers, who works on lower campus, is kind of in charge of running the rebranding, and you talk with him, and some of the most common feedback he gets is from people saying the new logo looks too mean. They don't like it
because we want.
it's too fierce and it's too mean. I was like, that's kind of what we're going for, so that's actually a compliment, but I think it's been received well. I think they've done a great job rolling it out on campus. I think
the banners on the buildings are awesome.
Within the athletic department, our administrative leadership team and everyone in the department kind of came up with some core values, and we're working on it, and we're calling it our athletic department roar, which we've rolled out, and the main core values that we're going to base all our decisions in. And so our athletic director's done a great job of that and working to incorporate. So there's a lot of momentum. It just, change takes time. And and it's sometimes little steps can make a big difference, but it's one thing at a time, and we're chipping away and we're getting there, and there's a positive direction and there's excitement about the different programs, which is good, and you can feel that in the community. And
what I'm hoping is the community realizes that, like, so all this stuff is brand new, happening right before kind of the main football season and whatnot. Like, I'm just hoping they realize it takes years and years to kind of like develop a winning program. So just because we rebranded, I just hope that, like, I'm hoping we have a great season and we do really well. But if we just had like a normal, even if we won half our games, lost half of them, like, hopefully people aren't like, oh, well, it's just old ISU. You know what I'm saying? Like, we kind of lose that momentum.
And I think from my perspective, what little I can control, that's been a goal for mine, is just to change the view of Idaho State. I've been at other schools who were in this conference before. I've coached there. I know how Idaho State was looked at for a long time. I've always kind of looked down on. We have a lot more to offer than people expect. I think our athletes are much more talented than people expect. And so I've kind of worked to embrace that underdog role, and we're going to surprise people. So my goal is to put the strongest, most athletic athletes out there on the field and let them do what they're good at. Win or lose, draw, whatever it's going to be, that other team's going to know they went against a team that was well prepared, physically prepared, strong, athletic, and had a desire, and it's moving the right direction. So it's part of it is that stubbornness, trying to get the respect that I think our athletes deserve, and they don't get all the time. I think there's some people in the community that have been great of jumping in and buying in and being through with us through thick and thin, and but it's trying to convert those people who want to be part of a successful program to come in all the time.
And sometimes the problem with Pocatello is I was just at another meeting for, like, it's called Think Big, but our mindset kind of our community kind of has the mindset of, like, Pocatello sucks. Like, there's just a group of people that are like, oh, I'm just in Pocatello because it's cheap, whatever, or ISU sucks. Like, there's not very much of a growth mindset here. So I think the whole community, like, over the last couple of years and hopefully over the next 5 years, 10 years, like, takes a swing toward more of a positive community. And I think that'll directly help, like, ISU and athletics.
And that kind of reminds me of when I was young coming up as a GA, one of the coaches, when I'm asking for advice, he said, no matter what, don't go coach somewhere because of the logo on your shirt or chase these big things. That'll be great. The money will be great. But he said, no matter where you're coaching, your number one goal should make the big make where you are be the big time.
Yeah.
You know, you might not be at Alabama or LSU, but there's no reason why we can't make ISU
Big time.
as big time as those programs and, you
Yeah.
know, operate in the same way they do with the same goals.
Yeah.
There's funding and staffing and things like that, but my thought has always been whether I'm a one-person show or whether I have
30 coaches.
30 coaches, I'm going to run it the same way. I'm going to run it like a top-tier Division I program, which is what I think we are and what we can continue to move toward.
Yeah.
And so it's rather than coming up with excuses why we can't do things, I'm trying to find ways around it to make what we're doing work.
Yeah.
You
No, I think that's the mindset that needs to be there, because then the athletes will also mold their mindset off like what they're around, like you,
Right.
and the coaches. So, I mean, if you guys believe, odds are they'll believe. And
Yeah,
then
belief is huge. I think
Yeah.
in the coach-athlete relationship, honestly, what I do, probably 20% of it is sets and reps and programming
Yeah.
and the importance. The majority of what I do is creating a mindset with our athletes and a belief in themselves and their coaches and their programs and things like that, and getting the right culture. That's the majority of what I do, and that's where I can make a big difference with them, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
what sets good coaches apart from great
Yeah.
coaches.
And that's similar in the private sector. Like
Being
it's
able
like
to connect and
connect and convince them that they're capable of things, and your job really doesn't suck that bad.
Right.
You just need to be more positive about it and yourself, and, you know, like all of that. Yeah. Coaching is like, it's just funny because it is only like 20 or 30% about like actual training and movement.
Yeah.
It's like the rest of it's like
when
more
you really
mindset.
boil it down, the majority of us are doing the same things.
Yep.
In different varieties. You know, I have these kids, they have friends or siblings or whatever that are playing at other bigger universities, and, you know, it's always kind of a wake-up call for them when they're like, oh, we do a lot of the same stuff they're doing at this school.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
It's
there's no
like,
secret sauce. It's
yeah,
like
it's not. We're not doing anything. The biggest thing is how you can get them to buy in. So I
Yeah.
think that's what can set me apart, and what helps build our culture over the years is I've been able to create those relationships. I think I'm a good people person. You know,
Yeah.
there's other coaches who have a lot more knowledge than me and the actual nuts and bolts of strength and conditioning. There's
Yeah.
always something to learn. They've been doing it longer. They have more, but
Yeah.
it's the people skills. It's the communication. It's, you know, it's what Brett Bartholomew calls now the art of coaching.
Yep.
And it's that side that's kind of seen as the soft side in strength and conditioning. You know, you don't want to be the soft guy. You want to be the yelling and screaming and we're moving heavy weight. But I think there's something to having those quote-unquote softer skills with
Yeah.
your athletes, and, you know,
Yeah.
being able to see them as people as well, not just
Athletes.
a football player, a basketball player, or whatever it might be.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I think if you get that in place first, and then hopefully in the future the money comes where you have those kind of wow factors to get kids here, like you have a nice gym, you have, you know, Oregon, for example. Like,
Yeah.
they're going to get people that want to go there just because of nice things, but first that culture has to be like
You have the right people
the
there.
right people in place.
And that's the exciting thing about Pokey, and why I try to bring in so many people like Chief Shy and get out in the community and have our athletes be seen out there. Is there's a lot of people here who want to do everything they can to help ISU, and will
Yeah.
do anything to see ISU succeed.
Yep.
And don't want the credit, don't want recognition, just want to do what's best for our athletes. And I think bringing them in and making them part of the program will really help us advance us toward that. You know, we might not have the best facilities, we might not have the flashiest whatever weight room, anything like that, but we have really good people here.
Yeah.
And I think good people will always beat out all that other stuff.
Yeah.
And good coaches.
Because when I was growing up, I don't think I met, like, even through high school, like, I wasn't exposed to a community event with ISU athletes. Like, I didn't know any of them or see any of them.
Right.
Just on the field. So, yeah, I think that would be huge, like, because they're all super nice. Like, now that I'm at Streamline, I get to talk to a lot of them.
And it comes from the very top. It starts with our president. You know, he came from Boise State, and a place where athletics was important. He's brought that here, and he's brought that energy. So it goes from him to our athletic director to our head coaches, and just permeates the whole department.
Yeah.
And that's why you see our athletes out doing other things. You see them getting involved in other activities that aren't just sports related, and that's why we have all these great businesses and professionals in town stepping up and wanting to help us as well and lend their expertise to make it a better place for each of our athletes.
Yeah. So for coaches that are kind of like looking into getting into the like strength and conditioning side on the college side, what would you say is? So we talked about culture. What's another big challenge? Is like communication a big challenge in terms of like being able to coordinate between all these coaches and what they want in that? And is there any recommendations on like how they can prepare for that? Or
It absolutely is. It's one of those things I've had to learn. You have to pick and choose your battles.
yeah,
You got to know which ones are important and which ones you got to let go a little bit. You're not always going to see eye to eye with your coaches. In my position, I deal with every head coach. And even though my title says Director of Strength and Conditioning, I just view myself as an assistant to every head coach.
yeah,
I'm an assistant on their staff. At the end of the day, I have my beliefs on what I think is best for the athletes and what's going to work. But at the end of the day, it's their team and their
Gotcha.
program. So they need to feel like they have input and their voice is heard. And, we can have some discussions, and it's not always easy. Sometimes you're going to butt head with coaches, but you have to try to leave the ego out of it.
yeah,
You have to remember that what we're doing and why we're here is our athletes and what's best for our athletes.
yeah,
Getting in an ego contest with a head coach over whether we're going to do a dumbbell snatch or a barbell snatch probably isn't worth it. It's not going to benefit our athletes at all.
yeah. Because I know, like for me, if I got into the college scene, like that would be hard because, we all have a kind of a vision of like what our program would be and how it would be ran and why we do the training principles we do and our beliefs. But then at the end of the day, like you just said, like it's their team.
Yep.
You're training their team. So you have to have give and leeway, even if it's not something that you necessarily agree with. There's not a point to like battle every.
Right. And I think just being around them, though, if they see you around their team and they see you taking interest, they see you out at their events and going to their games and matches and you're around. It's not the only time you're ever around them is in the weight room. You start to build that trust and then realize you actually do care about that team.
Yeah.
That was one of the things I really had to fight when I first got here is my background is in football. I was kind of labeled.
Like, oh, you're a football
I was
coach.
labeled as a football guy. So there was some coaches who were nervous and, rightfully so, I get it, about me coming in and taking over the entire program. Are we just going to do football lifts? Do you understand how these other sports work? That's all you've done. I don't want my athletes looking like football players. I don't want them lifting like football players. So I've had to fight that a little bit, but as I've gotten to know the coaches and they realize that that's not how we're going to train all the time, even though most of the basics are the same.
Yeah.
Athletes are athletes.
Yeah. Humans are humans.
There's a few little, intricacies for each sport, but sport specific is pretty universal.
Yeah.
I feel. But it's just developing the relationship with those coaches and knowing they can trust me and knowing I have the best interests in their program. And so it's taken time. And that's why by year 3, it's running better. We still run into things from time to time, but the trust level is there. This year has been a new challenge for me in that we have 4 new head coaches coming in this season.
Oh, yeah.
So that's been a challenge, but you're able to sit down and meet with them one-on-one. And I kind of explain to them what I've done in the past, what I believe in. But then I also ask, what are your viewpoints? What works for you at your previous school? What do you really like? What do you not like? Let's find some middle ground and put together the best training program possible to allow you to have success on the field.
Yeah.
And most of our coaches here are really good. They understand that my expertise is in strength and conditioning. That's what I'm paid to do.
Yeah.
It's kind of like our head football coach. He said, I trust you. You do what you want. I'm not going to tell you how to run your lifting program, just like I don't expect you to come tell me what play to call on 3rd and 8.
It's nice that you're there.
There's that combination, and you get there eventually.
Yeah.
It happens. It doesn't always happen right away, but just building that trust. It's the same as building trust with athletes.
Yeah.
If you don't have trust, you're not going to have buy-in.
For sure.
And there has to be some vulnerability there. I've been pretty open with some coaches saying, you know what, this sport is new to me. I've never trained this sport. I'm learning. Help me out.
Yeah.
So if they see that and you're not trying to just be the person with all the right answers all the time and being willing to say, I don't know, but I'm going to go find out, that goes a long way towards building that goodwill with them and building a strong relationship. So
yeah, I think just like in general, just having like kind of an open, like you know what you know, but you don't know everything. So just kind of having an empty cup in terms of, you can always learn, even if those people don't have any background in strength and conditioning. I mean, they can give you insights on like what's demanded on the field. So then you can take that back and put it together. Because we run into like similar problems with when we work with, high school athletes is, usually strength coaches in high school aren't strength coaches. They're like They're like basically like if you took one of the coaches here and just had them run the strength program. So it's like, how do you communicate with those people and work with them and be very open with what we're doing on our private side with their athlete and what we'd like to see them do there and what we can do to kind of tie into what they are. And that's been going pretty well. When at first, earlier in my career, I was just like, I'd say stuff like, they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that always gets back around to them.
It does, especially in a small town like this. I mean,
yeah.
Never burn a bridge you don't want to cross again at some point.
Yeah. So no, it's interesting. It seems like, so basically these things that we're talking about on here for coaches or future people that want to coach, it's like the problems stay pretty universal, just like the movement stays universal between athletes, like whether you're in the college side, private side. So that's good to know. So we'll wrap it up, but this was a good one, so we'll do another one. But if you had like one book right now or podcast that you listen to that you would recommend for an upcoming coach or somebody that just is going to work with people in general,
right?
What would you recommend?
I think the big one that I've read this year, so I'm big in reading. I read a lot. I do a lot of – I tell all my athletes, you won't know this about me. I'm a book nerd. I read. That's what I do all the time. They see me with all these books and wonder, what are you reading now? So I took it on this year to try to read some kind of personal development book every month.
Awesome.
In different fields, different things from military to business to strength and conditioning to psychology, just kind of everything. And one that's really stuck with me and I've kind of taken a deeper dive on is Conscious Coaching by Brett Bartholomew. It kind of gets into the archetypes of athletes and how to deal with each archetype. You can't coach every athlete the same.
Yeah.
They're wired differently, and how you can reach them and create this buy-in that we talk about. So from that book, I got into his Art of Coaching podcast, which I listened to, and he gets in that. And now he actually has some online courses. So I am just starting this week. He has a course called Bought In.
So you're doing that? I was
that.
about to ask you.
It's a 5-week course, so I started it on Monday. And it's an online course. The great thing for me, it's you pay for it, you have lifetime access, you can do it in your own time and go through it. But it's all about it's not the X's and O's of strength coaching. It's creating that relationship with athletes and creating that buy-in and communication skills. Some of the stuff that you don't learn when you're going to classes or that certifications don't teach you, but I think make all the difference in how you're going to be as a successful strength coach and how your athletes are going to find success. So that's kind of been a big thing for me lately, is working with his stuff. Yeah. That's been a major one that I've liked.
I don't think that and how much was that online course? I don't think it's like a killer.
I think it was $300 or $400, something like that. And it's a 5-week course. He sends a bunch of materials. There's extra books and notes and things like that, and lifetime access to it. And I think he's done a good job. I've never met him, but everyone I know speaks very highly of him, or everyone I know that knows him personally speaks highly of him. And I think he's doing a really good job of pushing some of these things that we as strength coaches don't like to talk about. And getting it out there and helping educate that there's more to it than just lifting heavy weights and lifting hard all the time, that actually getting to know your athletes and creating vulnerability and letting them see you as a person and seeing them as a person and all that kind of stuff really plays into it. So that's kind of been my focus as of late in my professional development.
That's awesome. I'm finishing up. I did a business course through this guy named Logan Gelbrick, and then I'm reading his book, and I'm doing the Power Athlete methodology, which is through like a group of guys. But I've been following him for a while and watching Brett's stuff, and I think that'll be the next one I kind of dive into. And just from what I've because he puts out a lot of free stuff, and just from what I've seen, I would almost recommend, before you go and spend a bunch of money on like a CrossFit or go spend a bunch of money on a certification, it might even be worth it for you to dive into that side first. Because I would say my success with my gym and my career didn't begin because I knew a lot about strength and conditioning. It became because I was good with people.
It's a people business.
So if you're not a people person, or you are and you want to take that skill to the next level, honestly, I think if you had two options, you could be super knowledgeable about the X's and O's and strength and conditioning and the books, and was really shitty at working with people, or you could be really, really great with people and not know that much. You probably, in most cases, be more successful with the latter and being really good with people and really not knowing shit about strength and conditioning.
You can learn the strength and conditioning side. We all do it. There's a lot of people who are willing to share. Strength coaches have gotten really good about there's no trade secrets anymore. There's a lot of coaches in the business I can call up and say, what are you doing with this sport at this point in the year? I have an athlete with this issue, and they'll help.
Share. Yeah.
They can be in our conference. There's some coaches in this conference that I talk to on occasion, and there's no secrets. We play them every year, and they'll give me whatever information they can to help out. So that's a big part of it. And the other thing I like about Brett's podcast, The Art of Coaching, he did a episode a few weeks ago for young coaches who are trying to come up, and it's kind of the old boys club. You got to get in. There's got to be some communication, but just how to ask good questions. And when you're reaching out to these well-known coaches who are spread thin and get thousands of emails and texts and direct messages and all that a day, how to ask a question that you're going to actually get a good response and that they're actually going to take the time to do, and how to interact with them and actually learn from them. And I thought that was really valuable and very interesting, just from his perspective, now that he's becoming very well known, some of the questions he gets, and just talking about, the time and the specifics and things like that, situational awareness that can make your question so much better, and you're going to get so much more from that strength coach. And it shows you're invested in it.
Yeah.
If I get, as a strength coach, as busy as I am, if I get an email that just says, what's the best exercise to get me stronger?
You're like,
I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, to be honest with you. It's such a broad topic, and there's so many ways to answer that. How do you answer that in one email?
Yeah, you need a million other details.
But if you get a question that, I'm a 15-year-old high school football player, this is the position I play, this is my injury history, I'm finding that I'm not running as fast, or I'm not explosive enough in this, what are some things I can work on? That's something I can work with.
Yeah.
That's something I can help a lot more and lend some expertise. And as a coach, I'm not going to tell other people or coaches what to do if I don't know the situation. What works for me doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for everyone else. You got to know your athletes and know your population, and then fit your training to match those personalities. So that I think it's been a good thing. It's been interesting. It's opened my eyes to some other things, and kind of approaching the problem of, getting my athletes strong and fast and all that kind of stuff from a different mindset.
So I'm just your feedback right there already. I'm definitely gonna probably make that my next. Once I finish up these two, I'll probably dive right into that.
And he's been tied into Power Athlete. They've had him on.
Oh yeah, they have
on the
I've
podcast. A lot of those guys are tied in, and he's tied in with those guys down there. And that's the one thing I've found as I dive into these things that interest me. I find a lot of crossover, and it turns out that great coaches seek out other great coaches and then collaborate. And so you kind of go down this wormhole of all the best minds in the business and just seeing how they do it and picking from them private, public
and
sector.
Creating your own.
Yep. Yeah. And then picking and choosing parts of it and applying it to what I do here.
Yeah.
Not everything's going to apply, but there's always little nuggets in there that it's like that aha moment, and you incorporate it with your athletes. Like that worked very useful. So
because Power Athlete's more like about movement and the X's and O and why they do this and why they do that. And I think Brett feels a really cool niche that wasn't available before. Mm-hmm. Like you brought up, like he even put a podcast out for people how to ask questions and engage better with people, their mentors that they're trying to get to help them. It's like I haven't seen a lot of resources like that before.
That's a lot of things. That was you had to figure it out on your own. You have to figure it out on your own and trial and error, and that's the hard part. And in this field, it's becoming more popular, and more people are wanting to get into it, but the numbers of jobs aren't increasing.
No, they're not going up.
It's super competitive. It's the same number of colleges out there. It's the same number of pro teams out there. You can do probably as many unpaid internships as you want, but at the end of the day, at some point, you got to make money to do it.
Yeah.
And those are the things that kind of set people apart when it comes to hiring. And do you have those people skills? Can you relate to athletes? Can you deal with administrators? You know, can you talk? Or are you just someone who, once you step outside the weight room, you're just
a fish out of water.
Yeah, you're the hermit in the weight room, and you can't go out and talk to people. And so that's another thing one of my mentors, taught me early is don't be the strength coach who never leaves the weight room. Don't be the one who the only time you see coaches is in the weight room.
Yeah.
Don't make them always come to you. Make an effort to once a week, even if you have nothing to do, you have 5 minutes, walk down to the administrative office, just say hello, stop by, the basketball office, the volleyball office, whatever. Just stop in and say hi and be seen. And, build those relationships. And I think that's gone a long way here for me.
Good.
I could still get better at it, but it's helped.
Well, I think, too, that's like everybody knows it kind of gets in the field. That's going to help a lot with job security.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
It does.
Because that's what's scary about like a position like this as well. Is typically, traditionally, you're tied to a coach.
Right.
So if you don't leave the weight room and you don't develop relationships with, you know, maybe that coach moves on and this is still a great spot for you. But if you don't have good relationships, if that coach leaves and he doesn't take you, or either you're picking up your family and moving and going with them,
Yep.
or you're out of a job because that other guy coming in has somebody. So like if you have good ties with everybody within the organization, just creates, you know, not only is it better while you're here, but it's also better for your future.
Yep, and that's why investing in myself and my education is so important to me, because I know the security is not there. I've lost my job in a situation like that before.
Yeah.
And so I know I can't become complacent. I have to continually sharpen the sword and get better at what I do, because there's probably a time I'm going to have to pick up and move. It's going to happen. It's part of the business. If you're not okay with it and your family's not okay with it, probably not the business to get into. Private sector is probably a better solution. You know, it's one of those. There's a lot of great things about my job that I love, and a lot of things that I can, you know, I don't have to wear a shirt and tie to work. I can wear gym clothes, and I get to hang out with athletes and blast music and lift weights, and that's great. But you also have that hanging over your head. If we're not successful in the field, will we be employed next year? So just investing in yourself, just like you do in your athletes, is important. And then, you know, work-life balance probably isn't a real thing. I don't know that you ever really balance it.
Much.
But what I've learned, and now having a 1-year-old daughter, I've learned that, you know, pulling the 12, 13, 14-hour days, you got to pick and choose when you're going to do that. Yeah. Because I'm not a great coach when my mind's not in the right place, when my family life isn't in the right place. Yeah. I'm not a good enough coach for my athletes. So finding times, and I've gotten better, taking time off and being out of the weight room and closing it down, and, you know, having an athlete say, hey, can I come get a workout, and being willing to say, you know what, I can't today. I'm with my daughter, I'm with my wife, we're doing this. Yeah. Come see me on Monday. That's been something I'm working on. I think as strength coaches, we're just naturally the workhorses.
You're just freaking taught you got to work all day if you want to make it.
You get in there and you go, and that's how you make it coming up. And so I think that's been something I've been working on and talking with other coaches. You can't let the other side of it falter, because you're putting all your time and effort in to your coaching and your athletes. Yeah. You know, family's still an important thing for me. So
yeah. And a quick tip for people out there that, like, this is how I look at it. Like, I have spent a lot of extra money, like, outside of school on education. But don't feel bad. Like, take pieces of that and create your own. And my challenge is to like make money from what you create out of it. Like, create something, create a course, you know, use the information you got, because that information that they created a course and making money for, it's not like they didn't come up with it. Right. Like, they've worked and had mentors and created something and packaged it, and here it is. So, like, at the end of the day, take all these experiences you have, and with the internet, I mean, you can make your money back.
Yep. And that's one thing, you know, in this business, I've been slowly working behind the scenes and creating a fallback plan if for some reason something went wrong, or I just decided I didn't want to be in it too much the time. So, you know, I'm working on a website, working on online coaching, kind of rolling some of that stuff out. Merchandise, I haven't rolled any of it out, but there's plans in the works, and it's been something I've been working on, and, you know, designing logos, and it's something I have ready to go if I ever need it. Yeah. You know, and it's do it on the side, and it's a change up. It's nice to diversify, and I'm someone who needs to be busy. I need to have a goal. I need to have something I'm working towards. So it's another thing outside of the day-to-day grind that can keep you focused and keep you working on improving as a coach as well.
That's what I tell people. I'm like, because people come to me now a little bit, like kids my age, about, they think I'm successful. Like, my business is fairly successful, but obviously as an entrepreneur, it's like, you're always like, I'm not where I want to be. So they start coming to me for, like, what can I do to get to where I want to be? Because a lot of people are working jobs that they don't love. Yeah. And it's like, I think everyone out there should have a side hustle, because with the internet, like, you can basically monetize any little skill you have outside that you like. Like, you like to paint, cool. You could make prints, sell them online. You know, you like to coach, you could start an online coaching business. Like, you could create a course. Like, there's websites that help you build, like, an e-course that is super easy to make. It's like, honestly, everyone even if you're working a full-time job, you could probably put together a low-level side hustle that could grow or just help supplement. but you're still doing and making money from something you love
And
to
most
do.
strength coaches, we did that coming up anyways to get into the business.
Yeah.
Trying to get your foot in the door, you probably weren't making enough to live off as a strength coach. You probably had a full-time job, something you're training early in the mornings and at night, you're putting the pieces together. It's something we all do as strength coaches, and we can handle it. We can multitask, so it's an easy transition in the meantime because, the salaries are improving, the pay is improving, the job security is improving, but it's still not where I think it should be. I still think there's a lot of very talented coaches who are very underpaid in comparison to some of the other major sports and what coaches are getting paid and the amount of time they put in. And, so it's something we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to trumpet, toot our own horn and all that kind of stuff and talk about pay. We say it because we do it because we love it and it's what we do. And that's all true, but you still need to make a living.
Yeah.
And you still have to get paid what you're worth. And so I think being willing to value yourself and your time and some other businesses too. As a strength coach, you will have someone walk up to you, hey, I got a question for you, can you write this workout for me, can you give me this advice? No other business does that. You don't walk up to a dentist and say, hey, I was wondering if you could work on this, clean my teeth real quick right now and do it for free. As strength coaches, it seems like, and a lot of times we do it to ourselves, we're like, I'll do it for free, but at some point
I struggled with that.
We have to put our foot down, and it's hard to do because we just want to help people at the end of the day. But you have to put a value on your knowledge and your expertise. Yeah. And, you might start small, and you might have your friends and family discount and everything like that, but you can't continually give away your intellectual property and your
especially
expertise
when you're asking
and your
other people to
time
pay you.
Yeah.
Because then it's
that's part that we need to grow into because we're not good at it. We're good at just saying, I got you. I'll help you out. Let me fix you.
Yeah, let me do my job for you for free.
But you think, think a lot of other industries out there. You're not going to your dentist. You're not going to a lawyer.
Hey, can you do surgery for free?
Doctor's not doing it. Like your financial advisor, whatever it is, they're not doing that. So we can catch up and become better business people too.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe then that's probably another thing that up and coming coaches need to focus on is like creating an outside source of income or focusing really on learning the business side as well. So, shit, this is full of a bunch of little nuggets for people coming up. Cool. Where can people find you? I know you have your own personal, if you want to share that, or you could just share the ISU.
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter at Coach Dan Ryan, same on Instagram. Yeah. And then I run an Idaho State Instagram at ISU Strength. Okay. That's all on there. Emails on the website. Yep. People can reach out and contact me there. We're pretty easy to find if you search any of our ISU athletics stuff. We're there. Yeah, so I challenge you if you're in Pocatello or you follow ISU a little bit, go and follow that page and kind of just at least be more aware and involved with what's going on in the weight room and support that. And, thanks for tuning in, guys. Yeah, thanks for being on, Dan. You got it. Thanks. Thanks for tuning in and supporting Enhanced Athletics Radio. I really appreciate you. Please take the time to leave a review, whether that's on iTunes or Spotify and maybe even Pandora if you're fancy. And let us know what you think. Give us that 5-star review. And I appreciate you guys listening in. I hope you can take a piece of this and use it to improve your daily life. So again, if you have any ideas or topics you'd like to hear about, we are always open. And if you would like to be on the show itself, reach out to Darren at handsathletics.com. You can support us on our website, handsathletics.com, or visit our Instagram page and give us a follow. Thanks, guys.